ladies, welcome back to another weekly episode of the Simplicity TV show. I am Jen Pike, your host. I'm also the founder of the Hormone Project, Synced and the Audacious Woman. Today I'm going to chat with you about IBS, Irritable Bowel Syndrome, or as I like to call it, interesting BS, and I say that with love and a little sense of humor and also to kind of catch you off guard. And here's the thing. If you've ever been told that you have IBS, this means that you have a multitude of food sensitivities combined with a permeable gut and the inability to properly digest and break foods down, and your body is launching a response. It could be a histamine response, it could be an allergic response, it could be a sensitivity response. They're all different, they're somewhat related, they can cross over one another, and if you've been told you have IBS and really just need to avoid eating ice cream, take a lactaid pill, and just avoid the foods you know cause you problems, you've been led in the wrong direction, you have definitely not been educated, and so I want you to understand that if you have irritable bowel syndrome, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, really bad stomach pains, any of those signs and symptoms, you can even alternate between, going too frequently, then being constipated for days, then going too frequently, all over the map. There's a bigger issue that's going on in your body, and it's about time that you understand how to be able to start to work through healing that. Now, I don't know you specifically. I do not know exactly what your symptoms are or how they present in your body. I don't know your health history. I don't know how long this has been going on for. I don't know what you eat. I don't know if you're taking medication. I don't know what supplements you're using. I don't know what your environment is. I don't know if you have mold exposure, if you have an autoimmune illness. I don't know any of those things about you. But what I do know is that irritable bowel syndrome is something that can 100% completely be healed and shifted out of your body through the appropriate lifestyle, appropriate feeding or nutrition, eating, nourishing your body, supplementation, and healing. Now, there are different elements of that, and I'm not going to get too deep into this inside of this episode because, again, I don't know you. I don't want you to attach on to one recommendation and think this is the be-all and end-all for you. What I would say is if you're at that point and you are like, I have been suffering forever, because here's the thing, ladies, your digestive discomfort, your bowel discomfort, those things going on, that is most likely the root issue as to why you have hormonal issues, why your thyroid has acted up, why you have acne, why your hair is falling out, why you can't lose weight. We always have to come back to the fundamental issue of what is going on in the gut. And for a lot of people, they're like, well, if I'm not doubled over in pain, I'm not running to the bathroom, essentially peeing out my poo, I'm not constipated in that, then I can just muster, I can get through it. Meanwhile, your chronic headaches, your issues with your skin, your lack of energy, your burping and your acid reflux and the gas and the bloating and all of these issues, every single day, multiple times a day, this is literally your body going like this and being like, pick me, answer me, like, hello, I have something I want to say. And it's saying it over and over again, and it's getting louder, and it's becoming more disruptive because it's trying to get your freaking attention. And the problem is that if you go to your family doctor about this, they're not trained in understanding A, what it really is, and B, what the solutions could be. So you're going to end up with no support whatsoever. And then you leave it because now this is just you. This is your body, your mom had this, your siblings have it, like this is what just goes on in your family. And in your health. And that is a lie. That's not why this is happening. And you're not meant to feel like this. And the longer you leave this, the longer you suffer or suppress or stifle down the symptoms by taking Imodium and Gaviscon, a proton pump inhibitor, Tums, whatever it may be, you are now creating more vulnerability for actually more serious things to happen. And those serious things can range. In some people, it'll stay localized to what's going on in the gut. It could be irritable bowel disease. It could be colitis, diverticulitis, Crohn's. These are autoimmune conditions that can arise. It can be something that happens in terms of endometriosis now is actually traced back to gram-negative bacteria in the gut. Adenomyosis, same thing. So when you have these deep hormonal issues don't just arise and like drop out of thin air in the hormones themselves. They don't just occur in the uterus or in the ovaries themselves or your cervix. They're being fed by a system which starts with your immune system, which starts within your gut, and they're all interconnected. Your mental emotional symptoms, your anxiety, your depression, your brain fog, your lack of ability to focus and stay connected, also connected to what's going on in your gut. Your brain and your gut, if you have leaky gut, if you have IBS, you have leaky brain. The two are interconnected because they share the same axis. They have the same blood barrier and they are diffusing information all the time to one another. And so if you have these things going on, you need to do a deeper dive. This isn't about just going to get a meal plan put together. I would highly recommend that if you have these things going on, and this shows up all the time in the Hormone Project, women come in because they have all of the hormonal symptoms. And then as we do their consultations with them, and we start to look at the testing and we ask bigger questions. Like, here's a question I'll ask you that maybe no one, sorry, Charlie, am I in your way? That no one has asked you before. Along with those digestive discomforts that I've chatted about, do you also have difficulty sleeping throughout the night? Do you have rectal itching? Do you have excessive candida? Do you have yeast infections, excessive earwax? Do you have candida on the scalp, which you might just think is dandruff? These can all be indicative of different bacterial elements being out of balance in your gut and parasites. So many people have them. I know it grosses people out and they're like, and you envision this like long worm swimming through your body. That's not how these work. And there are tests we do. We run this test inside of various programs and services called the GI map test. It gets delivered to your house. You poop into the container, you have to take samples, you send it off, and literally it comes back with explaining, do you have parasites? Do you have eggs? Do you have worms? Do you have an overgrowth of normal bacteria, an undergrowth of it, an overgrowth of opportunistic or dysbiotic buggers? This bacteria, literally, they're just there to create problems. Do you have autoimmune triggers happening in your body? Do you have any of the GI markers of yeast and candida? And do you actually have GI markers with high levels of something called beta-glucuronidase? This is an enzyme specific to the gut that we test in poop. It's the only way to test it. And if this is high in women, you are going to have exacerbated hormonal problems and exacerbated estrogen dominant symptoms. So we can have a woman who, you can test her blood for her hormones, you can test her estradiol and her estrone and estriol in the Dutch, and they come across normal, yet she has all of these symptoms. You want to look at her detox pathways and then what's making up her fecal matter. If this woman has high levels of the enzyme beta-glucuronidase, it is literally potentizing your estrogen 10 times what it would normally be on its own. So we have to work at eradicating and de-strengthening that enzyme in order to decrease your symptoms and the struggles that you have. We can also see in this test your elastase measure, which is pancreatic elastase. This is an enzyme that is responsible for helping your body not only be supported for your hydrochloric acid, but your digestive enzymes. If you have low pancreatic elastase, it means that you actually do need to have digestive enzymes. And those enzymes could be different. If you don't have a gallbladder, we need some pancreatin, probably some ox bile, some different enzymes in there to take over the job of what that gallbladder did for you, because it plays a massive role. If you don't have a gallbladder and you have all of these digestive issues, you become mineral deficient. This is really going to impact your adrenal health and eventually your thyroid health. Then there's plant-based enzymes, there's digestive bitters, so it really depends what's going on. If you have H. pylori, which we test in the GI map, H. pylori's main job in your body, which more than 50% of the population has and has gone undetected, is it goes in and it robs you of your hydrochloric acid and your enzymes. So you might think you're eating this healthy diet, but you're burping all the time, you're gassy. It doesn't make sense to you because you're like, why is my chicken and my vegetables not agreeing with me? These are markers we need to look at because we need to eradicate the H. pylori, get it out of your system, and then we have to go in and re-inoculate and rebuild up the issues that have been going on. We also can see if there's blood in the stool, if there's high levels of calprotectin, which is a measurement of inflammation that's going on in the body. So there's so much that we can see. And you know, people, like I had somebody reach out this morning and say, this whole long laundry list of everything she has been suffering with. And then the question was, does OHIP cover these tests in your services? And like, I see that question and my heart sinks a little bit, and I'm gonna tell you why. Number one, you will never get to optimal health utilizing what is covered by your government. You will never get to optimal health by only going to your primary medical doctor. You will never get to true health by refusing to invest and pay out of pocket for the tests your body requires. This woman, what she was describing to me, unfortunately, she will probably end up with a variety of other conditions. Right out of the gates, from what I read, she probably is suffering from a really horrific ulcer that is going on right now and a hiatal hernia. If we did the GI map testing, we could probably see some of these bacteria that are going on and put her on a protocol for her to literally have half the relief she's ever had in her life within the next few weeks, and then actually be able to retest and see that we've gotten rid of it. If these things are happening in her body, her chances of increased risk of stomach cancer, of colon cancer, become very high. My dad had stomach cancer. 10 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with a GIST tumor. It was slowly bleeding in his body, and his iron was dropping, and he was having all these signs and symptoms. And because he had had burping and belching and all this for years, and the doctor was just like, that's normal, take your Tums, take your Gaviscon, he dismissed it until his body was screaming and got so loud. And by the time they went in, he had a GIST tumor that was so large they had to remove half of his stomach. He now no longer has a flap at the bottom of his esophagus that separates the acidity and the contents from his stomach up into that passageway. And he's been in remission for 10 years, and that's fantastic. My dad does not have cancer anymore, but now he is left with constantly being in irritation. And we do all these different things to help him. And it's not 100%, it has gotten a lot better, but had he just listened to the oncologist and to the medical doctors and to even the surgeon who did the procedure on him, he would still be on 3 different PPIs. He would still be suffering from reflux and burning. He would still be in a situation where everything he ate tasted metallic, like he says, like pennies. And when food is supposed to be something joyous, and these things happen in our body, and now you eating is the main source of your pain, your life changes. Your attitude changes. You're not a happy person. It is exhausting to be in chronic pain. It is exhausting for you as a woman to not know when you can go to a social event, what you can eat, where you can have it, and not know if you need to run to the bathroom or different things that are going on. So here are a couple of quick tips. Again, I don't know you. I don't know exactly what's going on, so I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty. I'm not going to create a protocol, but I'm going to give you some tips for IBS. Number 1, I know you might not like me for this, you have to cut your dairy 100%. You have to, okay? Number 2, you really need to evaluate your relationship with gluten and possibly grains for the next little while. We need to get rid of the inflammatory foods. Number 3, you need to understand that excess coffee, processed foods, takeout, iced caps, frappuccinos, all of those things, excess sugar, fried foods, the obvious ones where we know we eat them and we balloon and we don't feel good and it sends you into a spiral. You need to eliminate those. Then you need to look at some of the common offenders of IBS, like onions and garlic and raw vegetables. Now, I want you to continue to eat vegetables, but I'm going to recommend that you roast them, saute them, or steam them so they're easier to digest and break down. The other thing is start to consider adding a digestive enzyme. Go to your local health food store, let them kind of know what it is that you've been feeling. They're not super expensive and they can make a huge difference in a matter of 1 to 2 meals. I like people to take them with lunch and dinner. When you wake up in the morning, you typically don't need them at breakfast because you've been fasting all night. Digestive energy is a little bit higher and you don't have other foods sitting in there that potentially hasn't broken down and is what is contributing to the off-gassing, the bloating, the burping, and so on. The other thing that I would look at is your supplementation. There are specific supplements that can be very helpful. So digestive enzymes are one of them. If you have a lot of pain and discomfort from it, slippery elm is something that you can do. So you can take slippery elm in a capsule. You can use it as a tea. Also deglycerized licorice, DGL, very good at helping to coat. So if you have a lot of burning, a lot of the reflux, a lot of the acidity, that's something else that you could look at. Probiotics can be very helpful depending on what is going on. So a lot of people use multi-strain probiotics. With IBS, I find that not necessarily to be the best way to begin. Maybe it's where we end up, but I really like taking a single prong approach for probiotics with IBS, and my favorite one is Saccharomyces boulardii. Now, Saccharomyces boulardii, there are many different companies that have this. I really like Designs for Health. There's also spore-based probiotics, soil-based, from a company called Megaspore. Now, you typically have to get this through a practitioner who will give you a code to be able to use that. And usually you need to be within their practice in order to get that. But Saccharomyces boulardii is the probiotic. The other thing to consider is prebiotic fibers to feed the good bacteria in your gut. So you can Google prebiotic fiber foods. You could start to add things like in your Dandy Blend in the morning or in your tea, acacia fiber, and that is like an indigestible and insoluble fiber that you can put in. It's a resistant starch that feed the good bacteria to help to calm things down. The other thing you can do is add in glutamine, L-glutamine powder. 1 scoop, it's typically about 5 grams, goes in to help to calm and cool things down. Bone broth can be helpful. However, if you suffer from SIBO, bone broth can sometimes create a histamine response. So if you notice that when you have bone broth that you get gassier, that might not be the solution for you right now. It might be part of the healing moving forward. Other things to think about are making sure that you are hydrated enough and then using your water as a vehicle to get other supportive nutrients in. So you could add that L-glutamine in. There's a powder called GI Revive powder from Designs for Health that I love. It's got glutamine, it has MSM, it's got some pectin, it's got deglycerolized licorice, it's got aloe vera that's in it, it has a cat's claw, it's got a lot of calming, cooling things that go in and just like simmer down whatever is irritated in your gut. And then there are your foundationals, but we're not going to talk about that right now because things like vitamin D and vitamin B and vitamin C and magnesium and that, they're not necessarily going to be specific to your gut health. They're going to be specific to your overall health. So I would just say again, as you continue to listen to this and move into the rest of your day, really think about what I've said in terms of these symptoms, what can happen moving forward, how you can work with us. And instead of going out and buying every single thing that I just said, why not take the time and invest in working with someone who can devise a plan for you? For you. You're going to save time, energy, and money in the long run, I can guarantee you. So I get very passionate talking about it because I see it happen all the time and it frustrates me beyond belief because IBS is something that can be solved and it can be moved quickly, but you need to work with the proper practitioner, you need to have an appropriate protocol, and you need to be willing to invest your energy and some of your time and yes, your money into getting the appropriate tests so we know unequivocally what is going on so that we can help you because help is possible and so is healing. So you have a couple ways that you can think about doing this. The first is you could join us in the Hormone Project so we can go through the due diligence of these consultations and really help you get to where you deserve to be. The other way is you can work with one of our other practitioners, even our holistic nutritionist, Laura Bourne, and do a digestive intake and understand what's going on. And we can talk about the possibility of doing something like a GI map test. For women that move through the Hormone Project, this is one of our upgraded test packages that we do offer. Even if you've done the Hormone Project, 3-4 years ago, and you're listening to this now and you're like, oh my gosh, my hormones are feeling better, but now I have these new digestive issues going on, or so-and-so in my family had this that developed and I want to stay on top of it, reach out to us. Send a message to my team at hello@jenpike.com. Give us a little bit of context as to what is going on, and we will make sure that you get connected with the appropriate person. All right, I think that's it for today. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll see you back here next time when you tune into your weekly episode of Simplicity TV.